He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
And we are back with a repeat guest, a dear friend, JP Boutros, who is now a principal, his own consulting firm, Citius Consultant. Mm-hmm. Now, I've known JP for a long time. JP has a wide range of experience in different fields, and he's a mortgage. He knows mortgages backwards, forwards. He was involved in that side of things for years, and political side as well. But today, I want to talk about something that's sort of near and dear to both of our hearts. You've lived it, but I have become much more interested in it in the last 2 years. And that is the subject of transportation project fuckery in Ontario. And it's a wide, and you have deep knowledge of this. You worked at it, not the fuckery part, but you worked in trying to get transportation to work in Ontario. It was your job, okay, at a very high level.
It was.
And both of us have come to just be appalled by is the infinite waste in government, like stuff that just literally take your breath away. The catastrophic progress of the projects, like the budget overruns, the time delays, which are in some cases past believable. Like you'd say, no one would do this. This will never happen. And yet it happens. Uh-huh. And finally, why in Ontario, particularly in cities in Ontario, I'm not talking about small cities. I mean, Timmins may be fine, okay? Or Sudbury may be okay. I'm sure I'm going to get a couple of comments from Sudbury that says, no, we're in terrible shape. You don't know anything. But I think it's fair to say in large cities in Ontario, literally nothing about transportation projects works. Nothing. And hasn't for multiple decades. So, JP, just tell us a little bit about your background and what how you used to work in the transportation field.
Okay, well, so it came about back in 2010. I was asked by one of the city councillors of the City of Toronto to join in with Rob Ford's new government to work on the TTC side of things. For those of you who do know or don't know, that's the Toronto Transit Commission. This woman was the chair of the TTC, or became chair of the TTC, and I was there as someone who had never really been in that political environment before, but had a read on how to deal with people in certain situations, including councillors, because they all have their fiefdoms. And so as there was a discussion about LRT versus subways for many of us who lived it between 2011 and 2012, while the Rob Ford mail tree was going on. It was about trying to figure out what the best future plans for transit would be for Toronto, up until now. So as the TTC chair, as the advisor, I was one of the people who was involved with basically herding cats on votes, making sure that I better understood the system, dealt with, the staffing, union stuff, that whatever was coming about. And it wasn't just about the existing transit, but it was more of a focus on future transit because that was where the political domain was. When we had fare cuts or fare freezes, we had to figure out how to make up the money from the budget, from the operating budget from elsewhere in the city to make sure that, you didn't cut service as well. So that was between 2010 and 2014. I was at Toronto City Hall, which was a cauldron of, as you put it, fuckery.
The Ford morality had its own issues. But what I understand clearly is, though, you were looking at this from a very high perch. Like you were looking at it from the perspective of somebody who's trying to make something happen, pulling disparate threads together, and also what was going wrong. Because you were at the top of the food chain. You weren't actually calling the shots, but you were totally observing, shoulder to shoulder with the top of the food chain. You were observing all of the fuckery, okay? All of what's happening now? What? I mean, like, so you saw it. So we can do a dive now into just why and by the way, folks, this is not just a Toronto thing. It's not just an Ontario thing. You know, when I talk about problems of transportation in big communities in Canada, it's always a shouting match online and in social media as to who's more fucked up. Okay, so whenever I talk about how disastrous GTA traffic, transportation projects, like you name it, road work, you name it, whenever I talk about it being abysmally bad, 37 people from Montreal will jump in and say, fuck you, ours is so much worse, you have no idea how bad it is. And now lately, I've got Calgary people saying, just wait, we're on our way to the end. I mean, we're headed for disaster. I got the people from Ottawa chime in and say, wow, you think it's bad there? We're a much smaller place, but we fuck it up harder. Like, it's bizarre. Like, and sometimes I hear from Vancouver, but all I hear from Vancouver is, yep, total corruption here, money's just being stolen, and that's what happens out here. So, this is kind of a universal thing across this country, is where there are major projects, major transportation projects. Fuck all, nobody is happy in those places where these projects are going on. Everybody's angry. Everybody's disappointed. Everybody's pissed off. No one is pleased. No one has ever sent me a note that said, hey, no, in Saskatoon, everything's working so well. Okay, like I've never got that comment from anybody, okay? So this is a Canadian thing. It's a big city thing. That's something you've had exposure to.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's one thing to take away from this, though. Like, I mean, you can have the entire population and, you say, oh, yeah, Tokyo Transit's amazing and, other large cities in Asia is amazing. There are reasons why it works there and doesn't work here. The first reason is that the population, the density of Tokyo, the entire population of Tokyo and its metropolitan region, it's pretty much the population of all of Canada.
I think it's a little bigger, right?
It is. Yeah. It's 40 million and change. Yeah. And so when you take that, you have to move that many people in that small an area effectively and efficiently, it works. Here it doesn't. And it's because you are trying to please a wide, diverse group of people. You have many stakeholders involved. You have road users. You have, dare I say, bike lanes. You have transit users. You have people who commute in and out of a city as opposed to being in the city and commuting internally. There are people who are paying for the who are not even paying for the use of roads outside of a city, but they're basically marking up the roads. So when you have that many people involved in influence over how transit is developed, if it is transit we're talking about or just transportation in general, you're going to piss a lot of people off. And and equally when you're working on election cycles, when you're working on 4-year cycles, assuming you're going to be fired after 4 years and you got to go for that job interview again every single 4-year period, and at different levels of government, you're going to have messes like we have.
Yeah, that's understandable. Although we'll take a few minutes to try to figure out if there's any solution at some point. But so just to highlight some of the key things. So in the province of Ontario and in the most communities around, almost every community in Ontario, there's some central basic complaints, and they revolve around, number one, no road construction ever works out properly. Mm-hmm. Like literally none. Doesn't matter whether you're widening a highway. By the way, like widening a highway, in my small mind, it's my small brain. It's I think, look, if I'm widening a highway, once I pay the people off that I might need to pay the people off to secure the real estate on the side of the highway and buy that, expropriate it, whatever you do, because you might have to acquire some more land on each side of the highway. Once I do that, it shouldn't be 12 fucking years to widen the highway. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me at all. Okay, like it's not sensible, and yet we see it. We see it constantly. If there's a decision to expand a bridge or replace a bridge, it shouldn't take a fucking decade. Like like we're supposedly a first world modern country, filled with expensive equipment, filled with smart people, clearly huge budgets because we watch billions being flushed away on this stuff, and yet can't finish on time. Then or ever on budget or anything. But then we come into like actual transit, because we know that in Ontario, we've had over the course of time some leftist regimes. So the previous provincial Liberal government was pretty, the Wynne government was very far left, Kathleen Wynne. We've had some leftist mayors for sure. Okay, no different than this one we have today, Olivia Chow, but there was many more in the past. Far left mayors, or just faux center mayors like John Tory. I guess probably his attention was distracted by trying to bang secretaries in his office. Okay, that probably took his attention off some things, but he's trying to come back, right? Is John Tory trying to come back as mayor?
Apparently, I don't know why. Maybe it's the masochistic side of him, but yeah.
Or maybe he's heard there's some new women come into the office or something there somewhere. I don't know. Like, I mean, I wouldn't trust that fucker as far as I can throw him. Jeez. But anyway, we've watched sort of the left wing folks. But the right-wing folks aren't really any better, because they're sort of faux right-wing. They're fake right-wing. They are people who say, like the current Ford government in Ontario, there are people who say things like, well, we're going to build that highway to the Ring of Fire. Okay, golly, folks, we're going to get that going. Well, nothing. There's like literally nothing happens. Okay, so we're faced with all that. And some of these things, they stagger the imagination. Like, it's fair to say the Crosstown LRT in central Toronto is one of the most unbelievable project failures in the history of history. Is that fair?
If you were going to put a textbook definition of transit fuckery, it's the Crosstown LRT.
Got it. Right?
Abject fuckery. I mean, and kudos to making fuckery a great word for the first time since Amy Winehouse used it.
Yeah.
That kudos,
Big
man.
Winehouse fan, by the way, over here. Big Winehouse fan. So.
Absolutely one of my favorite lines.
Yep.
What kind of fuckery is this? That is literally the motto of walking around second floor at City Hall most days. So, it is just one of those things. And yeah, it is. They blew it. They blew it. It should, it should have been a subway, or it should have been something else. Or, you put the subway in the middle and then have LRTs that stretch out to, west and east from there. That would have worked. But building something that is trying to do two things at once never really works out.
So, like, we're talking about a Toronto thing, but I think there's many other cities that'll appreciate this. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's sort of a working LRT in Vancouver, you could say. There's a couple of them, right?
Yeah.
We'll come back to them a little later on. There's sort of a catastrophic one in Montreal that took them forever to get finished.
Oh, the Ottawa one, you mean?
The Ottawa. Yeah. No, there's Montreal too. There is a LRT in Montreal that took forever. The Ottawa thing was also like a disastrous, but it actually finished. Okay, like no matter how bad, even though the trains didn't fit on the tracks and everything that could possibly go wrong did go wrong, it actually finished. So, to your point, like to steal a line from Roosevelt, to change a line from Roosevelt, a train that will live in infamy is the Crosstown LRT. That the most spectacular. And folks, an LRT is just an above ground. You said it best. A streetcar by any other name? I mean, is that what it really is?
It is. It has a pantograph. And look, I mean, that's also what Rob Ford and Doug Ford were saying back in the day. Yes, it is a streetcar. It goes underground. It is not a subway when it's a thing that goes underground like that in most objective people's estimation. It is. And you also have to understand, a subway tunnel is even smaller than an LRT tunnel because you have to fit this thing called a pantograph on the top of it. So it is just that much more work to build an LRT to go underground for a great distance. I know this is all people, might be a small audience kind of thing, but it's endemic of more of the decision making around transit in that why was it put forward? Because it was politically something that, an earlier government really wanted to get done. It then, becomes the son of, Godzilla and just is something that has to be built because this critical mass of people have been behind it for this long. This is what we're going to go with. And it really wasn't the right thing to do.
So just to summarize for people in the audience, an LRT is light rail transit. And the idea behind it is, in many cases, it is a streetcar. It's not really meant to be underground, but because we're all crazy, parts of it do end up being underground. That's true of most LRTs in Canada. Parts of it turn out to go underground, then come back up, then go back under, then come back up. And it's also in it's a very dense urban area this is being built in, okay? So the thought process is, first of all, everybody should get this. In most of the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada, I'm not talking about Atlantic Canada. We love you, Atlantic Canada, but you don't have any subways, so we're not going to talk. So the original idea from London, England, was that you would build subways, that you would leave the streets for pedestrians and vehicles, and you would move mass transit underground because it just got out of everybody's way. I mean, this is a very central idea, that if you want to have mass transit, you dig it underground so that it doesn't interfere with anything. Okay, that's the simple. Is that a good summary?
It is, and even in New York, it was underground or it was above ground. They had the L trains.
Yeah, in Chicago, they have the L train.
Sure, they still do.
Yeah,
it's moved the biggest number of people without, you worry about flow.
You worry about flow, and you don't want to interfere with surface. That's the key. Don't leave the surface to the surface. It's already there. So let's leave it alone. We'll either dig deep or build high. Whereas the idea of a light rail transit, as we've formulated it in parts of Canada, is sheer foolishness, okay? It's like it's half a train, half a subway, really mostly a streetcar, and it doesn't work. But just to summarize for everybody why we're so focused on this Crosstown LRT for people in other cities in Canada. This fucker may never finish. Okay. Is it 15 years now? Going on 14, 15 years?
Well, it was approved in 2012. I know because I still have the document that sort of said that, we're going to vote on this from City Council. So 2012.
Okay. So, and that probably was 3 years of planning before it got to City Council, right?
Well before that.
Years and years of planning. 5, 6 years of planning.
Yeah.
5, 6 years of planning.
20 years.
Because in Canada, we just plan the fuck out of everything, okay? We spend more time planning than we do building. That's how stupid we are. In some countries, they just say, let's build this thing, hire a contractor. But we don't do that, okay? We plan, we do reports, we change our minds, we do new reports, we plan some more. Anyway, every adult Canadian is familiar with this fuckery that we endure in our lives. So maybe 2012, we're 2025, no end in sight, right?
No
end in sight. How long is this thing?
Oh,
start to finish?
Yeah, start to finish. And well, I mean, you've got it sort of extending now. I can't remember off the top of my head, 12, 14 kilometers.
12, 14 kilometers. Yeah. So this is, folks, we built a fucking train from Montreal to Vancouver, 120,
maybe 20. Irrespective of how long it is, it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, but we built a train with most primitive technologies you could imagine, with hammers and shovels and no heavy equipment at all. We built a train from Montreal to Vancouver in about 18 years, if I remember right. Okay?
It was 1880, whatever, 1890, whatever the last spike was.
So somehow we have regressed so badly and so precipitously, hellishly wrong that if we were to try to build a train from Montreal to Vancouver again, a line from Montreal to Vancouver, it would take 100 years. And $1 trillion or plus.
And $1,000-year bond to finance it because
so that's how the world's changed, folks. But the reason this thing is so incredible, this Crosstown LRT, is they won't announce a completion date. Okay, I want you to think that over for a minute. Okay, when you're building anything, I don't care what the fuck you're building, a house, a condo tower, a hospital, ship, who cares, okay? There's always going to be a date, okay? There's going to be a date. Yes, we'll be finished on this date. And if you miss the date, you can revise the date. You can say, well, we missed that date, but 100% sure 1 year from today, it's finished. And you might even revise that date. But apparently they fucked this LRT crosstown thing so hard that they revised the date multiple times, and then everybody grew ashamed. The shame grew to the point where the last couple of times they've just said, no date.
We're not saying shit.
We're not saying shit.
And the reason I'm saying shit is because sometimes it's just too much. You had the previous Metrolinx had a CEO replaced recently. Now Michael Lindsay, who's come in from Infrastructure Ontario's in, and he's managing expectations in the way it should have been done years ago. That said, you should never have had these problems to begin with. It comes down to compromise. Everyone is trying to compromise on things when you're trying to build things in Ontario and in Canada. It's about compromise. It's about incrementalism. It's not about vision or an almost dictatorial way of doing things, because
or an efficient way of doing things.
You're right. I mean, maybe dictator is just too common a word these days in my head, but really it is about efficiency, and efficiency is the well, it doesn't work in politics.
But again, it's a great summary, and we're going to do a dive on it in a minute. So some of these, because we're actually going to be able to answer some questions about why this thing is approaching the eternal. Okay, before it ends. But I want everybody in Canada to think about this for a second: that you would have a government pay for something. Mm-hmm. Your tax dollars that's where the money comes from. There might be some bonds, but at the end of the day, you're the owner. You own government. You are the taxpayer. And if you can imagine, you're getting involved in something where, as it extends out past normal human thought, that in the end, people would say, no one knows when this will be finished. And it's taken so fucking long. They bought, I believe this is true. We both believe this is true. They bought the trains.
Ah, yes.
They bought the trains for this thing that's never finishing. And the trains have been sitting so fucking long, they're now proposing that they're obsolete. It's unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah, well, this was the new CEO, Michael Lindsay, puts out this little thing. It's like, just so you know, these trains might not be, they need to be remedied. They need to be brought up to speed because we bought them 10 years ago. They've been sitting idle for I don't know how long. And we don't know if they'll be good to go on this line when the line is done. If it ever finishes. But, a train line without trains really fucking sucks. So you gotta have these trains ready. And, they say, oh, yeah, think about it this way. Like airplanes, like old cars, this is something I learned about with vintage cars. Just because you have a vintage car with low mileage, the problem is with hoses, rubber, this and that. If you have an HVAC unit, an air conditioning system, a heating system in a train, it's usually got rubber hoses and such. Well, guess what? Rubber hoses, if they're not used after a while, they become brittle.
Dry out.
Yeah, dry out.
They're useless.
Dry out. They're useless, like people. Yep. If you don't use them, we dry out. It's the same principle. Yeah. So these things have been parked. So you might need to replace all the damn hoses in these trains. You might need to go in and have the union guys going in and change all these hoses before you can start these trains.
Think about, apart from the total insanity of stuff sitting for 10 years and drying out and getting fucked up. So I know that this is not an engineering podcast, but
it's about angry.
But what was about being angry, and we're
mortgaging
fucking angry,
our futures.
Okay? So in any train, in any vehicle, there are some ball bearings. There's some ball bearings and there's some joints, okay, that require lubrication, okay? Now, often these ball bearings are sealed into a unit with the lubrication. But in 10 fucking years, it's just like Astroglide. It has dried up, okay? And we gotta. Yeah.
Top was open.
Yeah, we got to start all over again.
All the alcohol's gone.
Yeah, we got to start all over again.
And that's the thing. And you also have to take into account you bought these things from companies that A, might not even exist anymore, and B, more importantly, wanted to make the product so planned in its obsolescence that, let's say you talk about the ball bearings in some unit. It's like buying a BMW versus a Toyota.
Yeah.
Well, the reason you put a BMW, has all these things like the Vanos things, all of these components in a car, they're made so difficult to repair and replace parts in it because it means more money for, the suppliers, it means more money for the concessionaires, for the dealerships and everything, for people to come in and get replacement parts. There is no way that you're getting the cheap, simple, budget, efficient way a product in those trains. Those trains have things that need to be ripped apart and put together again at the highest possible price.
To your point, anybody who's had to fix a Mercedes understands this concept that you will pay for a whole fucking new car if you have to have too much fixed. Okay, like it is true. So here we are. We keep talking about this thing, and because it is just the ultimate expression of fuckery in government, that it's so fucked up, so broken, so delayed, so over budget. No one knows when it's going to finish. And now the trains that are supposed to run on them, it's been such a long time, the trains are obsolete. And they've never been used.
Never been used. They're just sitting somewhere gathering dust.
Oh my God.
And not dust, rust, and whatever else, because they're not parked inside.
No, fuck no.
Well, fuck, what is, and nothing like Canadian winter to make things good.
Okay, so I'm laughing because there is an element of comedy to this that, like, how can a government fuck something up so hard? Okay, it's breathtaking. It's incredible. Okay, well let's talk a little bit about why it happened. Okay, you taught me a phrase, a couple of words today that I was not familiar with, but it makes so much sense. So explain what scope creep is. Explain what that is.
Scope creep in the context of this subway or
any
LRT,
project,
any project, yes. Okay, if you're doing like a civic project, and I'm only going to use it in the context of this because it's just easier. If you have something like, okay, we're going to build this tunnel, it's going to go under a major arterial road in the city, and we're going to have, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then you get other elements like, let's say, Toronto Hydro, the hydro lines, the sewer lines, and all of these little departments in the city.
Very separate departments.
Very separate departments.
Yeah.
Okay, it's on Metrolinx's budget, which is an Ontario government project. They say, and because it's a capital thing, and they can bond and they can borrow money in a way a city can't at times, and they have the clout to get better rates. They like, okay, hey, wait a second. If you guys are digging this thing, do you mind if we just sort of like change the pipes that are 80 years old, or if we bury something that's above ground now? Because, I mean, you're doing it right now. And then the province or whoever goes, yeah, something, it's okay. Now, then
hold on. That's not a fast thing. That is, the department has to think about it for a long fucking time.
They got to redraw things.
They've got to request it. There's got to be somebody's got to think about it. There's got to be Metro's finally going to grind to an approval. Then it's going to get back. And by the time it gets back, they think, well, maybe we want to make this other small change here to add this other pipe, and it just goes, right?
And that's every station along the way. If it's underground, it could be anything that's on the way. Because if you're digging up the center of a road and you want to change the lighting, let's say street lighting. Well, we don't want the street lighting on the outside. If you've got a track running up the middle of Eglinton, why don't we just put the lights in the center while you're at it?
So there's nothing that ever starts with the plan finalized. It starts, there's a plan, and then as we move to try to get through it, we're going to keep fucking changing it all the way along. That's what happens.
Correct. And it's not just one group of people. It could be one subcontractor or contractor told to do it one way, and then all of a sudden they're given this stuff that changes it by $50 million, $100 million, $30 million, whatever the number is. It's never a small number.
Never small.
It's never a small number because guess what? Who's paying for it?
Big number.
The government is, which you never think is the taxpayer.
No, it's just government. It's a magic pit of money, yes.
Take it to Treasury Board. Make sure you do it at a certain time of the year just before they do the budget so it's in the books for next year. It's all alchemy. It's all, accounting wizardry. And then you realize it's not just about the money, it's the time. And then it takes longer to do. And when it takes longer to do, it just creeps. Now, that's not the reason for scope creep. They call it scope creep because it changes a whole bunch of things. But everything changes. And then it's all on the back end. It's all on the back end. It's never made faster because you can't force people to do things faster because you just change the rules.
And this is the famous change order. This is the change order by which construction companies, engineering firms become wealthy as God. Okay, because change order doesn't have any contract associated with it. There's no guarantee. There's no nothing. It's a change order. You want to do this? It's going to cost this. We're not going to argue about the cost. There's going to be no fucking discussion. Okay, you were in the middle of this, and you've come to us with a change. We need to charge you X. That's it. Off we go. Oh, we think X is too high. Shut the fuck up. None of your business to say it's too high because we're right in the middle of this now. So you're going to pay what we're telling you it's going to be. Okay. So the contractor grows rich. We haven't even touched on NIMBY madness. Okay. Just some fucker along the way wants to argue about a tree and gets the ear of a counselor. Tell us about that.
Man. Okay. So in the city of Toronto, you once had 44 fiefdoms. Now you have 22 or whatever it is. And so every councillor basically is up for election, has a job interview every 4 years.
Yep.
And so it's their interest to worry most about what's most local interest. And that just requires a couple of people who really have nothing better to do than to just say, hey, I have a problem with this tree here. You thinking about taking down this tree. In this context, I'm only talking about the Osgoode Hall trees that sort of held up everything with respect to the Ontario line. But there are all kinds of places along a line where higher order transit is being built. Every project. It could be a road widening. It could be something where something is held up. Now, understandably, there are some reasons for it, but let's call it what it is. When a NIMBY comes in, it is to protect uniquely their entity, their thing.
Their little corner of the world. Their tiny corner. Okay.
It's nothing. And yet it is important to them, but the disproportionate effect it has on everything else. If you add up all the NIMBY complaints on something that costs $10, $12, $14 billion like the Crosstown, I am absolutely sure that the NIMBYs themselves are responsible for 300 to 500 million of it. I mean, just the complaint,
just
the nature of the complaint,
bullshit,
nature of the complaint, the delay, the added stress, just everything, the reworking of everything. It is that big a deal. And property taxes. Oh, I don't want property taxes going up. Yet there's certain people responsible for a disproportionate amount of the cost to the taxpayers, which means all of us.
Professional bitchers and moaners.
Absolutely. I mean, there are textbook lines that you hear at any one of these any of these consultations. And yes, there is a need for it, except there really has to be a sort of cap to it, because if you are going to get the stuff done, pay them. It is just cheaper to pay and just get it done. If you add it to the price in advance of doing the project, just say, we got to deal with this, just pay them, put it out of the way, and just be done with it, because it just adds up over time. Because, of course, but you also have to have the right project.
But people don't pay. They eventually pay someday. But what happens is there has to be a consultation first, which could last for who the fuck knows how long. Okay?
Numerous consultations.
So the other interesting part about all this is, what if the project, who gives a fuck what project it is? Because there's always some big transportation, big transit, big roadwork project underway, multiple in Ontario at any given time, that's also true in Quebec. That's also true in BC and Alberta. So there's multiple going on at any one time. And what if the actual original thought behind whatever one project was always a mistake? What if it was always a mistake? What if the idea of building an LRT, because I'm old, I'm 68, and when I was growing up, the train was only for above ground. The trains were like the CPR and the CN. I mean, it's just like trains take people distances. What happens inside of a community is either a subway, which is what I knew, like when I came east from the west, and why I went to these cities, whether it's Montreal, Toronto. It was subways. It was all subways, okay? I'm aware there's some way above ground trains. Like there's elevated trains in some places. And I also when I came here, it's the first time I ever saw a streetcar. That was the first time I ever saw a streetcar. I thought, okay, that's fine. It's got some weirdness associated with it because, the thing that hooks up the electricity falls off and somebody's got to run around to put it back. I always thought that was pretty fucking weird. But, and of course we all are familiar with buses. Buses used to be it. Used to be buses and subways. That's all there ever was in most big cities. Okay. Am I right? Is that a reasonable description?
Grew up on them.
So but then suddenly in the 1990s, I guess a bunch of politicians went to Disneyland. And they decided that a monorail is what we need. Some kind of super, and they were building them in Japan, okay, and Europe.
And in Springfield.
Yeah, and in Springfield, yeah, exactly, and the Simpsons. So there was an idea that, this is the new good thing, okay? Let's build this Disney World monorail in our cities, okay? But then that didn't really work. So they compromised and said, let's build a streetcar on a track that's powered by electricity because, of course, everything has to be green, right? Everything's got to be green. Everything's got to be electrical. They even did electrical buses in Edmonton. I think they bought a fleet of them, of like 35 of them. They all fucking died. They all didn't work. They're all garbage.
Yeah. The Ballard gas ones as well.
But now they're going to buy 85 more of a new design that will also totally fucking fail because we got to go green, okay? Always remember this, folks. Go woke, go broke. It's universally true. So we got the real truth is this dream of LRT, this dream of light rail transit, was really just a dream that a politician had when they came back from Disneyland. There's no engineer, there's no real old school transit expert would say, no, they'd say no. It's just buses and subway. That's what works. But you're just inventing a new fucking thing that's untried, unknown, and may not work at all. And guess what? It fucking didn't. It didn't work. Okay, but it was too late. Was it David Miller thought this up?
So David Miller, the David Miller mayoralty, Adam Gimbrone and others who were there were the ones who were most aggressive for it. It was called Transit City as a proposal back then. And it was part of a complement of a whole bunch of other things. But yes, whoever it was decided they went to Vienna or somewhere and said, wow, this really works. Let's bring it here. And I mean, it's the same principle behind bike lanes and everything else. And just for the record, I'm not some, hard right, MAGA, everything, this is wrong stuff. There is a place for everything. And Toronto isn't the place for surface rail in the middle of a road. It just isn't.
Okay, fair. Yeah, absolutely.
It just isn't.
Yeah.
And it was David Miller who was the hardest behind it. And it was when...
So just to interrupt for a second, David Miller is basically just a tiny, tiny bit to the right of Mao Zedong, right? I mean, like...
Of Trotsky, maybe.
Just Trotsky, yeah. He's like if Lenin met with David Miller, they would be friends, right?
Bosom buddies. And that's not to take... look, I mean, Harvard Law, the man won when he shouldn't have won. He beat, when Mel Lastman was leaving, he became mayor, and he had it. But the problem with amalgamation in general is that you had six... Well, I usually use the word Oakville. You had 6 smaller municipalities, former cities, that then had to merge and meld with the downtown city of Toronto, with an urbanite culture. And you just had this reflexive back and forth, in much the same way you have in politics in the States now, where you had the downtown imposing its values on Etobicoke, Scarborough, North York, in ways that it just didn't want it to happen. And when David Miller was around, it was the imposition of those things, which created Rob Ford, which created the ability for Rob Ford to come. But yes, David Miller was somewhere near Trotsky when it came to beliefs in terms of, and I know it's a bit of an embellishment, but he was left of center, considerably left of center. it sometimes was costly. And it was especially costly at that moment because that was the impetus that got the design and everything together for the McGuinty government to eventually say, okay, we're going to do this. And McGuinty was from 2003 to 2012 or 2014. I know that Kathleen Wynne then took over. So you had basically, if you kept wanting to win, if you were a Liberal, you needed Toronto. And so what happened, obviously, and it happened also with Rob, we think that this should happen. And the thing that was bright and shiny in 2005, 2003 was Transit City, was LRTs. Let's push for this. So they did all the, paperwork. They were going to get it done and it was going to happen. It was already starting. And then Rob Ford won and said, nah, this stuff is garbage, ripped it up, said subways, and went on that. Because he was the person who drove along King Street or Queen Street or Dundas or College and saw a streetcar and said, how the hell do I get around this thing?
So, at the tail end of the provincial Liberal government, although I would argue that the current Ford Progressive Conservative government is just a faux Liberal government, but I think I could prove it. But look, let's talk about this sort of lefty idea about transit. So as she was leaving, towards the end of her political career, Kathleen Wynne decided to, because this thing, Crosstown LRT, was doing so fucking well, okay, and it was such a great success. Remember, folks, not finished yet. Nobody knows when the fuck it ever is going to be. Nobody literally knows when it's going to be finished. It's like that fucking Harry Potter movie. The name that cannot be spoken. You may not speak its name of when it will ever finish. Mm-hmm. So Kathleen Wynne said, this LRT thing is going so well. Let's build it in Mississauga much farther, longer, farther forever. Like go from the lake to Brampton. Let's go this huge LRT that nobody really knows whether anybody wants it. Okay, but let's build that because, as you said, lefty politicians love this LRT thing for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Transit City. So that is also in the running to be the next Crosstown LRT. Like it was supposed to be finished now. This train from on Lake Ontario all the way to the city of Brampton. It's supposed to be finished now. No fucking chance. It's going to be from a 7-year project to a 16, 17, 18-year project because you live close to it, right?
I do now. I moved from central Toronto out there and out here, I suppose. And the thing about it is you can just tell this isn't going to be done in a year. This is like a 3-year at least, a few winters and everything.
I'm betting on the 7 years. I'm betting on the 7 years.
I'm not taking the over or the under on it. I'm just saying I ain't fucking waiting for it. Like it's just, and the problem also is that all these transit advocates, they speak of it, and I was and am an advocate for transit, but I'm also an advocate for it actually working, and actually being operational, and
that it actually finishes.
or at least provide people with the thing that works now instead of something that is theoretical 10 or 15 years down the road when their kids might use it and might choose not to use it, and the real problem is that. It's much like that whole thing where NASA is told, let's make a pen that writes in space upside down and, it defies gravity, where the Russians just used a pencil.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And, the Freakonomics thing is that in a prosperous world, cheap and simple solutions don't get proper attention. And buses would have worked. A BRT instead of an LRT.
Dig a trench, run the buses up and down it.
Yeah, just allocate a lane specifically for buses. But then you think, people are going to be upset because the lane is taken away. It's not going to change anything. It's going to be better than what we're having now by a stretch.
And billions spent too.
Billions spent, and it's in the future with no return in the current.
Which brings us to a fascinating point that you brought up, and it just hit me as so fucking rational. If something takes 20 years from the day you presented the idea, because it was 5 years of planning, 6 years of planning, 14, 16, 18 years to completion, 20, 25 years. Mm-hmm. When something takes that long, the whole concept may be outdated by then. It could just be gone, okay?
Gone.
Because when we're talking subways, at least, when there's something there for 50 years, it's a habit. It's habit forming. Yes, I know where my house is. I can get onto the subway. I can be at my office in X amount of time. I know where my house is. I can get on the subway. I can be at the Blue Jays game. I can be at whatever game. Okay, wherever the fuck. Okay, I mean, at the concert. Then it's a habit. Then people keep using it. You have to maintain it, but they will keep using it.
Correct.
Okay, but when you invent something brand fucking new that makes no sense, it never takes for 25 years from the idea stage to completion, or no one knows when the fuck it will complete. And there's no habit to start because people are using fucking electric scooters to get around now. Okay. Like they don't want your fucking the train from the lake to Brampton.
No,
because first of all, I don't want to go to Brampton. Okay. If I'm down by the lake, I don't want to go to Brampton. People in Brampton don't want to go to the lake. It's all fucking crazy. And if I want to go short span, I got my electric scooter. I just hop on it. Okay.
or you got Uber.
Or Uber. Hey, guess what?
Yeah.
In between this 25 fucking years,
Uber came to be.
Uber showed up.
Yeah.
Okay. And people say, look, I don't even want a car anymore. Okay. I'm just going to, when I need to go somewhere, I'm just going to take Uber because I work from home or whatever the fuck. Or I can walk to work. So the destruction of taking 25 years to do something and it's incredible cost and mind-bending over budget cost. Finally, contrast to place you spent a certain amount of time in, Japan. Okay. Now, to your point, it's very dense. It's so dense. But there are intercity trains, famous trains that move super fast. Okay. But how long ago were they built?
The Shinkansen started 50 years ago, and that was a Tokyo to Osaka train. That was the first one. And yeah, they traveled back then at 230 kilometers an hour. Now they do over 330, 320, 330. So you can get from a 600-kilometer ride between Tokyo and Osaka. It takes about 2 hours and 10 minutes if you're on the fastest train, 2 hours and 40 minutes if you're taking one that is quasi-express.
And that capital cost was all sunk 50 years ago.
It was.
So that's the real important part. The Chinese build 400 kilometer an hour. Does that sound right?
Yeah, the maglevs. So and they're even getting up to 500 now. Japan is trying to do it as well. A maglev is a magnetic levitation train, and there's one that has famously been in Shanghai for 15 or 20 years that goes between Shanghai Airport and the center of town. A city that is basically 100x in population over that time, or 10x at least. And yeah, they all exist and work, and they're driverless. And the one is driverless.
And they're mainly driverless. So our unions do not allow any driverless trains, right, in cities. That's just effectively the way it works, even though it works perfectly. And as I think you coined the phrase that I may not trust a Tesla to drive me without a driver, but I think I'm fine with something that's on a track.
Correct.
Yeah,
I wouldn't take an electric driverless plane.
Yeah.
And, I have a lot of apprehension putting pure auto drive in a Tesla if I did, but it's on tracks.
It's tracks. It's a track.
It's like,
it's a track. Yeah.
It's got to be.
Maybe the worst thing that happens is it would stop.
Yes.
Right? That's
and with 100 or 1,000 people on it, it's going to be designed to be just fine.
So, but we can't do any of that stuff. So really, but folks, it's really, really important to understand whenever you hear this story from our federal government of high-speed trains, be very, very wary. Okay, listen to this. What JP has told us. These are trains that are moving very fast in phenomenally dense areas. They're full all the fucking time, okay? All the time. Not, maybe there's some points in the day they're not as full, but they're mainly fucking full. So my point to you is when you listen to the batshit fucking insanity of Mark Carney suggesting a high-speed or crazy Justin, may his name live in infamy, Justin Trudeau, suggesting that we're going to build a fucking high-speed train from Quebec City to Toronto, understand that the density of population in no way, shape, or form supports it. Oh, by the way, you should also know this. For the people who love, again, a dense population in Europe, who love their high-speed trains, everybody should understand something. High-speed trains, even in Europe, generally lose money. They are subsidized by the government infinitely.
So, admittedly, all transit is losing money, except in certain places like Japan and South Korea. Now, the reason they don't lose money there is because they own the real estate that they're under.
So when they build a skyscraper on top
theirs,
of it,
and they're getting leased. They're self-funding on the op side, and they have the development in dense areas because they plan these things. It's like, we're going to build a JR East hotel and a big 70-story building in the middle of nearest Tokyo stations, because they own the damn thing.
They're getting revenue from it.
They're getting revenue. It's perpetual. So that's why it is revenue neutral at the fare box. In most places elsewhere, it is not. That's called a fare box ratio. In Toronto, it's somewhere between 70 and 75%. So the difference is covered by property taxes or whatever taxes the city can bring up on the operating side. So the irony is that the more users you have in transit in Toronto, the more it costs.
But just understand, everybody, this concept of the high-speed train from Quebec City to Toronto is batshit crazy.
Beyond.
It's just insane.
And I get shat on every time I question
because people love it. They love high-speed trains.
The people who love it are people like Sagard and Power Corps, and I'm a Power Corps shareholder. I mean, they look at it and they go...
But even average people who say, I love it in Europe, so I'll love it here, do not understand the idea that it's going to cost $1 trillion. Okay, I mean, it's just that the train you love in Europe was built 55 years ago. Okay, different world back then. Okay,
and try to go through certain territories.
Oh yeah,
I mean, and this isn't about land rights. This is a genuine. If it is troublesome for a Via Rail train to go from A to B at certain times in Canada, why on earth won't it be any more difficult for a high-speed rail, ostensibly high-speed rail train that's going to be, I mean, you have to expect that many people want to go between Toronto and Montreal at a given time, because that's all you're servicing. Maybe Quebec City, maybe Windsor, and Windsor is Windsor, and I feel badly for it, but that's all you're trying to cater to. No, the demand isn't there, and not at $50-100 billion or whatever it's going to cost.
No. The original budget, the dream budget was like $250 million for this thing. So you can bet $1 trillion. I mean, just assume it's $1 trillion in 30 years. Look, at the end of the day, what we've discovered is that this ultimate truth of all these big projects in Canada, apart from a few outliers, seems to be a phenomenal failure. Just a money pit that doesn't work, that people don't like when it's finished. It takes 1,000 years to get done.
You make it sound so good, man.
Is there a way to fix this? Or is it just so built into the system? You'd have to tear the system apart. You'd have to say, hey, all of you cities, you're out. Okay, we will decide what to do. We will decide that there's going to be a subway from here to here. We will assign a contractor to it. We will say that there is a budget. If you go over budget by one fucking penny, we're going to penalize you. If you're a day late, we're going to penalize you. But you only have to do one thing. Don't listen to fucking the sewer guys. Don't listen to the hydro guys. Don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to the guy who wants his tree saved. You are now removed from all that. Just build the fucking thing on time and on budget. But that's really almost impossible to get to today.
It is. For the primary reason is if you are RFQ or RFP that in Canada, you're not going to get many bidders. So it's going to be a real problem because everyone's just going to go, well, like, fuck, I'm not bidding on this.
Because they love their change order world.
Because they love the change order world, but also why would they be bearing the brunt of idiots who keep changing the scope on them?
But hold on, this is like, it comes down from on high. It comes down from the provincial government who says there's going to be one plan, once these blueprints are approved, you can't change them. You can't change anything.
Yeah,
you can't do any. It's just this. Okay?
I would feel much more comfortable with it. It would be priced accordingly because everyone who puts, when it goes to tender, it's going to be 20 to 30% higher than what you'd anticipate it if it went out. But it's baked in, and of course, then the construction company would then be able to borrow against it and do whatever it needs to do to get the thing built. But it has to be done right from the beginning.
Sure.
Is there a solution? Anyway,
hard to know if there's a solution. That might be one. But here's what you and I also both know. Mm-hmm. The minute somebody tried to do it, if a province actually tried to step in and say, yep, we're shutting down all you municipal bullshit artists, all your bullshit, all your foolishness, all your different agencies, all your counselors, all this, we're going to enforce this, we also know there'd be 35 court challenges immediately.
Yeah,
So-
but it'd be a lot easier. But the irony is that because of the Constitution, municipalities are a ward of the province anyway.
They are,
So
yeah,
they can say they can make them shit in ways they don't like. Anyway, it can be done.
But we know
yeah.
there'd still be court challenges.
Well, of course there could be court challenges, but there's court challenges for everything, and that actually also adds to the costs of
100%.
things to be built. But back to your point about why things. Why do things happen in Japan while they don't happen as well here? It's one of those things. It's about the incrementalism. It's about the, catering to everybody, about what I was told once by a person at Metrolinx. We got to put a chicken in every pot when we're building something. That adds time and everything. The thing about places like Japan and the way it's governed, the way it, has evolved into what it is now. It's whole culture. They listen to whoever's making the rules, by and large. And the real important thing is they were decimated 80 years ago.
Well, there was nothing left of the
There was
place.
nothing left. So they had to start from scratch. We have been building incrementally on things like, we have streetcars that are still here because they were there a long time ago, 100 years ago, up Yonge Street and down Queen or whatever. We have things that are part of a system, and we can't let those things go and start anew. We can't start fresh because there is no way to say, no, we're running this show. And even if they had the power, they're not able to say, we're going to run this show. A la Robert Moses, and I know not many people, care for him. Robert Moses, New York City.
Apart from you and me, probably nobody knows the name.
But basically, a lot of New York wouldn't be what it is now if it wasn't for Robert Moses.
What's that woman?
Jane Jacobs.
Jane Jacobs. The real truth is, Jane Jacobs, who stopped highways and supposedly saved neighborhoods and stopped freeways and stopped transit, stopped transportation corridors. The reality of life, and she's been like this most beloved human in fucking...
Lived in Toronto, and David Miller was a dear friend of hers.
Yeah, and everybody loves her and worships her. It's basically, she is the devil. Like, she literally is the devil. She fucked everything up, okay? In hindsight, she is the devil. At the time, everybody loved her, but the reality is we would have had vastly improved transportation corridors getting into the city today if she'd have never been born. That's the truth.
If she lived in, it's one thing in Greenwich Village when you got subways everywhere and you got the line that takes you out to Jersey easily, because she lived in Greenwich Village and fought an expressway there, and at least you had transit that worked already.
Tons of it.
So there was a fight there. But coming here and saying, okay, we can't have the Spadina Expressway. I'm not relitigating it. It's done. Not making fetch happen. But you do have a lot of the problems in the center core because cars are there and they're going to still be coming there, and you didn't scale up transit in an effective way to make sure that people could move around. Everyone feels the pain equally.
Look,
that's the philosophy politically.
You are so right, because when you say they'll still be here, because folks, I want to make this super fucking clear. There is no construction materials, groceries, furniture being brought into Toronto on a fucking train, on a subway, on a streetcar, okay? You will need trucks. You will need transport for as long as I can fucking think of. I mean, I don't think the drones are going to be carrying the fucking pallets of fucking oranges down to the stores in Toronto, okay? I mean, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So everybody who thinks, no, let's just stop all these people coming into the city. Hey, Toronto, you need to get fed. You need furniture. You need stuff in your life, okay? And it comes via vehicles. That's where it comes from.
One of the main reasons I left central Toronto is I compared how much my staple foods at a place like Oceans or even a Shoppers Drug Mart in Mississauga are compared to those at Yonge and Lawrence. And my God, it's 20 to 30% across the board cheaper.
At the most expensive places.
Yeah. 20 to 30% across the board. And you could compare a Shoppers to a Shoppers, and all those costs are borne by trying to transport that crap into the city inefficiently. Someone's got to pay for it.
Listen, I know I'm going to get this. A few people are going to comment who are transportation engineers on this show.
Please do.
Who are going to say, stay in your lane, you fat fuck. You don't know, you might know about mortgages. You know fuck all about transit, or road work, or anything else. And it's true. I am not an engineer, but I am a 68-year-old human being who has been tortured by insanity fucking insanity in the GTA for the last 30 years of fuckery, okay? And so is everybody else. And the great point JT made was, when something goes on forever, you just get used to it. JP, you said it at lunch. People just forget.
And that's what politicians plan on. It's like, you'll forget about it. There's going to be something new. I mean, it's what happens all the time now. But you're living with it. We're paying for it. We're fucked.
We're fucked. We'll leave on that note. Thank you. See you next time. Thank you so much, JP. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.